I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor to be part of this conference. It's organized here in Ukraine. And I have like 3 key messages for you. And we're going to talk about that later, but I have to warn you, I have 182 slides for you. You still like it? Yes. So the first message actually is both for yourself as also for your clients is the world really has changed. So I would like to show you why we actually need to change. And the other thing is we need new tools. And the other thing is we also need new skills. So this is key when it comes actually to nowadays business, but also for consulting. So first an introduction. A couple of years ago, I've been born and raised as a consultant at Arthur Andersen and Deloitte and PricewaterhouseCoopers. And at some point, I had enough of the traditional way of consulting. And I thought, clients ask me all the time, how can you help us with innovation? And I tried to figure out how to do that because it's very hard to figure out how you can do innovation. And then I met Alex Osterwalder, and Alex is from Switzerland, and he came up with an idea of a new tool that explains what your business model looked like. So I called him, and I asked him to come to the Netherlands in Amsterdam, and he didn't want to come. So I thought, I just invite people to come to a workshop and charge 800 euros for 1 day. And then 40 people showed up from Luxembourg, New York, Istanbul. And what was interesting, this was in 2008, and everybody wanted to listen to his story of what does the business model canvas look like and how can you put this in practice. So then, after the workshop, when he came to Amsterdam, I said to Alex, why don't we start to put a book together? And then Alex said, yeah, that would be very interesting, but if you put a book together about business model innovation, it would be very stupid if you do that through the traditional way. So we thought we are going to disrupt the way books are published. So what we did is the following. We opened a platform and we charged people to be part of our platform and pay for our book. Nowadays we call that crowdsourcing. This was back in 2008. And when they paid $24, they could get access to the content and their name would be written in the book and they could get 50% discount on the book. So it started a little bit to grow, and then we thought, let's raise the price. And then we thought, let's do it again. And every time we raised the price, more people came to the platform. And in the end, we ended up with 470 people from 45 countries financing our book. And we asked ourselves, okay, so why do people want to participate and pay? Well, first, they thought it's cool to be part of something bigger, and we want to be the first, because it takes you more than a year to publish a book. And the second one is, this is the most important, they would like to have their name in the book. So they want to show to their clients and to people that they are part of this book. And if you have this book, I'm not sure if you have one, on the left-hand side, these were the people with whom we started. And on the right-hand side, the 4 last people, they paid $243. So we saw actually that when you think that it's all about people who read books, this is the wrong assumption, because people don't read books nowadays. Actually, what they want is they want to buy a book and they want to be part of a community. And I think this is something that publishers don't understand. And right now, our community exists of more than 15,000 people all over the world who talk about business models. So then we published the book ourselves and we took it to Amazon, and then you saw actually that a lot of people started to read the book. And we asked people, send us pictures of how you use the book. And then this guy is working on, I think, some microcredit business model. And Right now, we sold almost 1 million copies, and it's translated in 28 languages. So what I would like to show you, not only that my life is easier with making royalties from this book, but also that this whole thinking around business models is something very popular, and it's cross-border. Everybody around the world is doing that. And my journey looks like this. So it's the third time that I'm here in Kyiv, and I've been traveling all around the world training people about how to use these new tools. And you see that we work for different clients, and you see that the Heineken logo is a little bit funky. But all these companies are struggling nowadays with understanding how they could reinvent their business model. And then we cross borders. So right now we started our office in Amsterdam, and we have offices all around the world to share knowledge about how to apply business models and also to exchange the new business models that we design for companies. So if you think of why we need to change, it's interesting because I see that a lot of people and companies, they have a headache. And why? Because you see that for some companies it's too late. And why it's too late? Because we need to rethink the way we do business. And why? Because the world is changing very, very, very fast. And you see like it's a wild world where actually new companies emerge every single day. And you see that today we see forces that we haven't seen before. And I call them new rules of the business game. And let's look a little bit deeper what that looked like. So this is a volcano in Iceland, and when this erupted a couple of years ago, this canceled 70,000 flights, and some small airlines went bankrupt. If you think about these developments, you would never ever imagine that such thing could disrupt your business. Then when I was at school, I'm right now 40 years old, but when I was back in school, I was taught that banks could not go bankrupt. Well, nowadays, banks go bankrupt. So different rules apply. And what we see in the Netherlands and in Europe is that we think that when we think of upcoming markets, we have this picture in our mind. But actually what you see in practice, these markets already came up. So it's all based on our old assumptions. And we still think that we think what the market looked like and how it works. But it has changed. When we do business model innovation projects, then people are focusing on thinking of new concepts actually for older people. But actually the generation Y has really changed. And then people have this picture in their mind, but actually it's generation Y. And maybe it's generation Z, because this guy doesn't need a user manual anymore to use an iPad or a tablet. And when you look at the online revolution, we are able to work from anywhere around the globe. So in Amsterdam, more than 60% of the real estate, business real estate, is empty. Why? Because we start to work from home. So you also see that new technology is actually disrupting business. And also you see that new business models emerge. So I'll give you some of examples. What we see right now is, if you think of how news is traveling, then you saw that a couple of years ago, they thought in the Hudson River, CNN said, well, there was I think it was a helicopter crash. But then there was an eyewitness on Twitter. He said it was not a helicopter, it was a plane. And then when you look at books, we used to buy these kind of books, but now you see that we have them online. And if you think about business models, if you are a small print house and you've been taken over the company from your daddy and you are making money with printing those books, then all of a sudden your business is completely gone because everybody is buying this online. So you need to rethink what your business model would look like. When you think of a cab, we're going to talk about this afternoon also a little bit. Normally you need to stand in the rain to find a cab, but nowadays you can just push the button and the cab will come to you. The other one is about video. We talked about it this morning, is that this company is bankrupt. Why? Because now we can find movies and everything ourselves. We don't need the Blockbuster anymore. And this one is a little bit a pity, because when you do navigation, we used to have these funny conversations during our holidays, but nowadays we can use navigation devices. And what you actually see is that the speed of development is going so and so fast that you see that the shelf life of companies is becoming shorter and shorter. And then you see it's not important to look only on product design, but it's more and more to understand what the business model would look like. So what I see here is actually, when you were used to write a business plan, maybe you as a consultant for a company, then this was very useful because it gave a direction for the company to see where they would grow in the next 3 to 5 years. But nowadays, a business plan doesn't survive the first year. So we need to rethink what kind of tools we use, because a business plan is not the appropriate tool anymore. So what we learned actually, it's about new tools and new skills, but also a new mindset. So that's actually for the CEO, whether you are a startup company, but also for your team, because your people need to do that, or your client needs to do that. So what are new tools? Well, one tool is the business model canvas. And when you think of what is a business model, if you think of boardroom conversations that are still happening today, but what we realized a couple of years ago is that when people start to talk about business models, it was really about blah, 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 blah. And other people in the boardroom were nodding, but actually they were saying like, huh? What are you talking about? And then somebody else was talking about the business model, blah, 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 blah. And the others were like, huh? I have no idea what you're talking about. So what we figured out is actually that the most important thing of talking about your business model or talking about your business is to have a common language about your business. And this is the one benefit, the first benefit of working with the business model canvas. So what the business model canvas shows is actually how you as an organization create, deliver, and capture value. But then we thought that's quite complicated to understand the definition and how can you work with that. So we tried to make that more visual. So we thought the business model canvas is a way to look at your business. And this exists of 9 building blocks. Who is familiar, by the way, with the business model canvas? Who has seen it before? Okay. So the first question you need to ask yourself as a company, who is my customer? And you think, okay, that's a very easy question. Well, actually, we figured out it's not. So when we work with Toyota in Los Angeles, we asked this question to the top executive team. And we got all different answers. Because there was one group of people saying, it's the car dealer. Because the car dealers, these are our customers. And there was another group saying, no, it's the car buyer. Because these are our customers. And then there was another group saying, I think they are equally important. So facilitating discussion in your company is very important. So who is our customer? And then the next question you can ask yourself, what is actually the product or the service that we are delivering? And what you see often is that this is formulated from inside out. So if you go to the website of Deloitte or Ernst & Young, they say we offer integrated services. Huh? Integrated services? The question is like, would this customer wake up in the morning and think, wow, I really need integrated services? No, they need help and they need advice, but it has nothing to do maybe with integrated services. So the definition of your product or your concept or your service is something that you should figure out together with your customers and see how you could help. Then the next one is, okay, so how do we deliver these services? Is it online? Is it through the website? Is it through a shop? And if you don't sell anything, do you maintain a relationship, yes or no? And maybe this morning, the exercise of Anders was maybe for you a little bit obvious, but what I see with companies, this box is the most difficult because companies don't know who their customers are and they are very bad in maintaining relationships. So if you design a future business model and this box is not filled, I would be very, very worried. And then here you see on the right-hand side, we look at the revenue streams. So if you add value to customers, how are you able to monetize that? So what is your income? And if you offer something for free, somebody in this model needs to pay, and sometimes people forget that. When you look at the left-hand side, the question is how you put this model together. So you need resources like systems, people, networks, and you need a brand. But on the other hand, you also need key activities in order to get your model going. So what are these key activities? And then nowadays, when business is going so fast, then you can actually think of, how can I design a business together with a partner? Because why would you do everything yourself? Because you can find maybe different products, services, different channels, different customers together. And then you see that there's a cost to it. So these are the 9 building blocks that put your business model together. And you can look at any concept, like a single product, a concept, or you can look at the total company to understand what is the business model about. But this is very tough to understand, so I thought, let's look at the business model of Nespresso to give you a little bit more insight, because you are going to work on business model innovation in a few moments. So when you would like to do a good job, I would like to show you an example. So if you look at Nespresso, Nespresso disrupted the business model of coffee like crazy. And why? Because they made sure that people pay 5 to 7 times more for a cup of coffee by this machine and by this model, George Clooney. And if you look at the business model of Nespresso, actually the products that they offer, these are coffee machines and coffee pads. And when they offer these products, the question is, what is it actually, to whom are they selling these products? Any idea? So sometimes people say they sell to higher segments, people who can afford it, people with a high income, etc. But in the business model, I only would like to understand to whom we offer something different. So here you see they offer their products and services to households and to companies. Because the machine for the households is small, and for the companies it's much bigger. And one of the reasons that they designed a different coffee machine and a coffee pad is because on Friday afternoon in companies, people took all these coffee pads home. And now you can't use these coffee pads anymore at home. If you think of how they sell their products and services, then we look at the delivery channels. So you can buy the coffee machines in the shop, or you can order them online. You can go to Nespresso.com, and you can call them, and you can also go to the stores. But what you don't see here is the channel, is the supermarket. And you are a very smart consultant, so I think you know why they don't sell to the supermarket. So what is the reason? It's a waste of time, yes. Yeah, and what else? Sorry? They take money for the services, yes. So you can make a better price when you sell it yourself directly, but there's a more important reason. Yeah, it's branding, but I think lessons of today is all about relationship. And why? Because when they sell directly, they know exactly who their customers are. And when you think of record companies, for example, when they were selling their CDs and records to shops, they had no idea who was buying their music. And nowadays, banks are very afraid that we are going to pay with other devices and maybe with a mobile operator, because then banks lose all the information of who we are and what we do. So what is interesting is, if you would like to order coffee with Nespresso, you need to become a member of the club. And this is not all about big data. No, the only information they have is your personal information and what you order. And when I started to work 5 years ago on this book, because I'm not the author of the book, but I'm the producer of the book, I put it all together and financed it. And then I was almost bankrupt, because this book production, if you self-publish a book, it was almost 200,000 euros. So a friend of mine said, Patrick, I have this coffee machine for you. So I was very happy, and I called Nespresso, and they said, well, I would like to order coffee. They said, okay, get all your information, fine. And then they said, what is the serial number of your coffee machine? So I read it out, and they said, sorry, Patrick, this is not your coffee machine. I said, he's right, it's a gift from my friend. And they said, oh, that's nice, but did your friend tell you also that this coffee machine has been taken to the repair shop for 3 times already? And I said, no, he didn't tell me. And did your friend also tell you that this machine maybe will last 2 more weeks? So after 2 weeks, my machine broke down. And I suspect that Nespresso has a remote control that they switch off the machine. But what happened, my mom said, don't cry, we go to the shop and you get a new coffee machine. And then we got a large box of different flavors of coffee. So after 6 weeks, I got a phone call from Nespresso, and they asked me, Patrick, do you know how this machine works? I said, yeah, of course. But Patrick, we haven't seen you in the shop for 6 weeks. And that's very weird. I said, well, these flavors are not so nice. So it takes me a long way to drink myself through this coffee. And then they said, you know, we know exactly what is the most sold flavor. So if you allow us to order, then we can help. We'll deliver this coffee tomorrow in your office. And then you can drink the best coffee. And then I said, well, what do I do with this other coffee? Well, you can serve to your guests. That's what they literally said. So what I find interesting is, when you look at this business model, this is not rocket science, but I think that companies have forgotten that it is very, very important to develop deep relationships with your customers. Why? Because if you don't know them, you don't know what to deliver. And sometimes people find this very commercial, but other people say, well, I like that they actually help me in order to make better choices because I get so much information every day, I simply don't have time. And then here on the revenue side, you see that they make money with the one-time machine sales, and then they make money with repetitive sales of the coffee. And they call this, in business model language, the bait and hook model. And the bait and hook is the same with the phone because you get this one for free, but they make money with the subscription and with usage. So let's look at the left-hand side of the model. What was new for the Nestlé group is that they were selling from business to business now to consumer. So this was something new. And they need to do marketing and production, but the resources were patents because the patent was already registered in 1979. It's a long time ago. And the brand, the coffee, production facilities, distribution channels. And first they developed the machines themselves, but now they outsourced that to partners because they said, we are all about coffee and not about production of machines. And then here you see on the left-hand side, production costs, cost for distribution, and marketing costs. And I think the big cost item is missing there. That's George Clooney. And what is interesting actually is, this is the first step to understand, okay, so what does a business model look like? And what we apply actually in our practice is to visualize concepts. And when you start to draw it, then you don't need to write it down, and you can use simple images to actually help communicating and get understanding much better. But if you think that Nespresso can lay back and just sleep and relax, that's not true. Because the patent has ended, and now you see that competitors are also offering the same coffee. And also in the supermarket. So their competitor is offering coffee through the supermarket. But you know, I don't buy this kind of coffee. And you know why? Because I'm afraid that they will call me. Hey Patrick, did you buy coffee from the supermarket? And here you see that they applied the same technique, but then with a different product. So they thought, if we have coffee lovers who love latte coffee or cappuccino, then we can also offer a machine and a new product. And then they even took it one step further. So they also thought, how can we find a new customer segment? Are you familiar with this product? Are there young fathers in the room? Young fathers? This is the product. So, coffee for babies. But this is not a so successful product. So this is the milk, and it's very clean, it's very easy to use. But they launched this in 2009, 2010 in Switzerland, and it's not so big. So you see that if you have a very successful concept in a specific market and a specific brand, there's no guarantee that you will be successful in other markets. So one way that you can use this business model canvas as a tool is a way to understand what your business is about. So that's the one thing. The other way how to use it is actually to do innovation in companies. And that's very easy to use, but you just need to experience it. So let's apply this tool for innovation. So I would like to do an exercise with you, and you need to imagine that you just got a very new big client, and that's going to be very, very big. So you're very happy. So you're going to work for Donald Trump. And what he wants to do, he wants a new hotel concept. And you are very happy because you get this new client. Here, you look very happy. But then the question is, what are you going to do? Because he expects that you as a consultant can come up with a complete new concept. And he's willing to pay for that. But you can pray that the solution will come, but that's very hard. So what you can do also is to do research. So your hair almost falls out because you are doing exhaustive research on the web. And what you saw this morning, all information is available on the web. So you as a consultant, how are you going to add value? Well, let's see. These are some new concepts in the hotel industry. So this is a concept in Amsterdam where they had one crane, what they rebuilt into a hotel. This hotel only has 3 rooms. So if you want to make money, it's maybe not a good concept. Then what is interesting is actually that Marriott started to work with IKEA in order to set up a complete new concept of hotels. So this is not something that you think of beforehand, but this is going to happen in the next few years. And then this is a concept actually in Chile. And when I was in Chile, I was introduced to this concept. Are you familiar with this concept? Ever heard of this? So it's coffee on legs. So they said you can go to Starbucks, but you can also go to coffee on legs. And when you go there, you pay double for coffee, and women serve you coffee in underwear. And this is a very, very common practice in Chile, in the capital. But anywhere else, it doesn't work. And I'm from Amsterdam. We have completely different concepts. And here they only drink coffee. So I was fascinated to see this concept. Then when you look at hotels, if you look at this concept, I think it would never ever work in Kyiv, because this hotel room is so small, it almost looks like a casket. And another concept from Australia is actually they don't have a reception anymore downstairs. They don't have any facilities. You just rent a home, and with the facility, that's it. And this is called the Meriton Serviced Apartments. And then you also see there's agriturismo in Tuscany, where people rent out part of their houses. So if all this information is available on the web, what are you going to do? So what I would like to do with you is to see if you can come up with new ideas, with new concepts in the hotel industry by using the business model canvas. And what is important when we do such innovation exercises is to use as many brains as you can possibly think of. So what I want you to do is, in this room, find a team of 6 people close to you, and I will give you a business model canvas and post-it notes, and I would like to see if you can come up with new concepts in 10 minutes. And then afterwards, I will show you different techniques, how you can use the business model canvas to come up with new ideas. And I find that fascinating because you see that this generation of ideas, once you have the business model canvas, it's very, very easy. So I would like to experience this with you and first see if you can do that yourself. So let's group into 6 people, and my lovely assistants are going to help you to give you a post-it notes and a poster, and then we're going to spend the next 5-10 minutes figuring out if we can come up with a new concept for Donald Trump on hotels. Are you ready? Yay! So the more we are able to understand other business models, actually the more creative we can become, and the better we understand what would be the right business model for a company or concept. So that's one technique. The other technique is actually asking yourself crazy questions. So what if questions. So one of the what if question is, what if we stop doing business? And then companies always say, well, this is ridiculous, you can't ask these questions. Well, nowadays we are used to think like managers, and we always think of this one single solution. But it's not about that. We should think more like designers do. So I did a keynote in Taiwan, and I talked about the concept. I said, your next CEO should be a designer. And at the same day I did this speech, one of the best designers in the US, John Maeda, he was hired by a venture capital firm. So you find the proof already. And you see, you as a designer, you start to explore different ideas and different routes without thinking that would be the only option. So what if we stop business? What if we only sell online? So I was working with a travel agent in France, and they have offices and they have online. And I said, what if you only do online? And then the CEO said, Patrick, we're going to fire you because you don't understand our business. No, it is just by asking yourself crazy questions, try to figure out what would it look like if we only do online. So the technique is what if questions. The other technique is AP centers. And what does that mean? Well, if you look at your business model canvas, when you have your current model in the canvas, you could point out any building block and start to think, that is the epicenter of my thinking. So if you look at your key resources and you are Amazon, they did that in 2007 when they saw that the margins on their project were on their products were very, very low. So they thought, we have a very good brand, we have a very good web shop, we have server capacity, maybe these resources we're going to sell to different customers with different revenue streams. So now Netflix is using their server capacity, and you and I can buy part of their web shop to sell our own books. So epicenter thinking is a very easy and powerful way of thinking how you can come up with new business models. And then another one is understanding business model patterns. And patterns are repetitive characteristics, what you see coming by every single time. In our book, we wrote about 6 to 8 different patterns, but in practice, I see also different patterns emerge. So we used to think that we need to own music or own products, but actually, it's more about having access to this kind of music. So Spotify offers you streaming access to music. And if you think about these patterns, these are also emerging in other industries, because in San Francisco, there's no use to own a car because it's too busy anyway, you can't park it. So BMW, actually they offer not cars anymore, but they offer you a subscription model where you can have access to a car. So a pattern in business is from ownership to access. And another one is from products to services. So if you look at the hotel industry, Airbnb, the pattern is actually that they don't need to own the rooms anymore. So if you compare this with a traditional hotel, they are offering other people their homes and they sell that on the website. So this is a way to come up with new ideas. And the other one, which is now the most popular but is the most difficult, is what would it look like if you start to design products and services from a customer's perspective? So this is one concept that was launched in the Netherlands. And they said, okay, so if we are going to design a hotel and we take away all the frustrations of customers and we really make them very happy, what would that hotel look like? Well, that hotel looks like this. So what they understand very well is that they don't have a restaurant or a breakfast room anymore. Why? Because people nowadays, they would like to grab it and go. And they don't want to wait for somebody to serve them and then to get black hot water. They just would like to do it themselves and get the espresso coffee when they push the button themselves. And what they also thought is, they don't spend so much time in their hotel room. So maybe we can make a very small room that still feels comfortable, and then we design that with Philips and with the architect firm to see if we can make it as small as possible, because on the left-hand side of your business model, you save a lot of resources and money. So this bedroom, this is the one hand, you sit here and you look at your bed, and if you look the other way, you look at the door. So it's 13 square meters. And they also thought in this business model, how can we save time in construction? Because construction of hotels is very costly and very time consuming. So what they started to do is they start to fabricate this in the factory. So the rooms are built in the factory. So here you see the factory hall, and then here you see one room is put together, and there in the assembly line, and here is your room. And what they do is they transport this with the truck and take it to the construction site. And then, ta-da, here's the hotel at Schiphol Airport. And you know what is interesting with this business model? They don't have any competition. And why? Because on this spot at Schiphol Airport, Hilton or any other hotel, they can't afford to be there. Because Citizen M, they have 260 rooms, because it's small, but Hilton could only build maybe 80 rooms. And for them, 80 rooms, it's not profitable. So where you see that the number of cost, the number of time is much, much lower, the customer satisfaction is much higher, and every time the CEO is opening a new hotel, then they are thinking, okay, so what about the new features? So somebody said, we would like to offer a gym into this hotel. And then Michael, the CEO, said, is this really going to increase our customer satisfaction, yes or no? And I said, And then Michael said, we're not going to do that. So they only deliver everything what people really appreciate and what they love. So you can work in the hotel, wireless is for free, you can get coffee very, very fast, and the best coffee, and they don't have restaurants. So this is a way to look into business models and try to understand what kind of techniques can I use in order to come up with different ideas. So what I learned in the last 5 years is that we offer total strategy concepts for companies. And this is not only about the business model canvas, but also about other tools. So what I see is that in the assessment, you first need to understand your current business model. Why? Because we need to have the same language, and you can use this business model for generating new ideas. And you see that vision is very important to understand what that would look like, but also your market, your context. So we have different tools also, like the business model canvas, in order to understand that in a very easy and fast way to work with clients. And then in innovation, where we see the options, it's not about this single option, but it's to generate as much ideas as possible. And then you see that for any company, you have maybe a couple of flavors of business models. Not 10 or 20 or 30. It's the same when we start a consulting company together, there are a couple of models. And the better you understand what these look like on the right-hand side, the easier it is to keep on servicing your clients and figuring out how you can serve them best. And sometimes you see that these concepts are emerging in time or following up in time. So when we published the book ourselves, we had 8 different business models to publish it yourself. And the first one was the publisher model. We crossed it out. But after 2 years, the publisher came and we thought, hey, now actually we can use this business model. So in innovation part, it is about the option. options. And on the left-hand side, we know now much better what kind of techniques there are in order to come up with new ideas. So when customers ask us, are you sure we can come up with a new business model? Yes, no problem. Because ideas is not a problem to generate ideas. What we find though is when we started to work on these ideas, we thought like, yeah, you need to implement them. And customers told us, then if you would like to implement them, we need a plan. But then we thought there was something missing. And Steve Blank from the US, he works closely with us, and he said, well, here is that actually what you need to do is your business model here is just a business model on paper. And you need to figure out what are the assumptions. And you need to test them with customers. And as long as you know that your customers are willing to pay for that, then that's the next step to move forward. So we had one client in Eastern Europe who actually, a manufacturing company, and their idea was to build a large factory to be able to sell more. But then what we figured out is that if you build a factory of 50 million, it doesn't help you to sell more products. So we started to come up with different ideas, and we talked to customers, and then we figured out that our ideas about customers were completely wrong. So these are the 4 stages that we go through, where you see that you can use different tools and different skills to work with companies on innovation or on their strategy. So I talked a little bit about new skills, and in the next 2 days, I will be here and we go much deeper, but for now I would like to show you 2 of them. So I told you that we should think and act like designers, but what is that supposed to mean? Well, on the one hand, it's all about observation, because what I believe is if you observe customers and you develop that skill, you see and you learn more. So with your eyes, your ears, camera, and your notebook and your pen. This was our safari in Turkey when we started to understand what are the plumbers doing and what do they consider important. And our assumption was that quality was the most important. When we were talking to them, they didn't care at all. It was not about the quality. And when we thought we need to help them in order to be faster and to meet their deadlines, in Turkey, deadlines, it's not a problem. So all our assumptions from the headquarters, when they wanted to design a new concept in Turkey, you can all flush them through the toilet. And what I find exciting, if you work with customers and you go to meet their customers, and when they start to learn, that's the real magic. And that's very addictive. The other thing is, new skills is, I believe that drawing is the new writing. And why? Because writing reports, it takes too much time. Nobody has time to read them anyway. So why don't you start to visualize this? And this is John Maeda who said, well, it may be tools of the past, but he believes that these are tools of the future. And then we teach people to do training, drawing and writing again. So tomorrow and the day after, we're going to do this. And that's not enough, because this is the way we look into context maps. So we put this on the wall, we use the marker, and then we co-create this together with customers. And it's not about asking McKinsey, for example, to do market research. You actually want to do that with the team yourself and figure out what do we really think is important. Or we start to design future scenarios with artists, not writing the report, but just drawing a new world of advertising. And here, this is the business model of Spotify visualized. So 5 more skills. We'll talk about that on Sunday and Monday. But I would like to close this short speech and small workshop. When you think of business models of the future, I think as a company or as a consultant, you need to have new tools and new skills and a new mindset. And why? Because it's not clear what exact would be the right business model for a concept. But when my speech was about business models of the future, I thought I need to give you some business models that are about the future, but we don't know the business models yet. So the one is about the home stove, and these are about products that we are offering in third world countries. And what is interesting is that we normally thought we're going to produce this in Western countries and export them to locally in third world countries. But actually, this doesn't work like that anymore. So here you see that with this home stove, actually the whole product and the concept is developed in the country, and the whole ecosystem is developed around that. So it's not about Western countries selling like crazy to these countries anymore. Another one is the next generation aerospace. This is an airplane that is built based on material that's growing. So you can grow an airplane into a greenhouse and it starts to grow bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it ends up in a plane. So if you think this is crazy, this is already happening. So the question is, what would the business model look like if you start to develop such kind of concepts? And this is a concept that is developed together with Autodesk in San Francisco, and where they are testing and looking into these kind of models. And then you can see that different constructions are possible with glass, etc., in planes. And the last one I'd like to show you is, if you think that the internet was big, then the makers world is actually much bigger. So when you can print things yourself, then the ideas of production or self-production are enormous. And maybe you think, I'm not sure if this is going to be big. Well, I was in San Francisco, and there was one small kid, 11 years old, and he started to produce a small piece before, for the trumpet, so that he could blow the trumpet much better, because it was otherwise too big. And we were sitting there with his schoolmates and some business people, and he said, you know, I love this 3D printing. He said, because this 3D printing makes my business feasible. He said, 11 years old, because I can now operate in niche markets, and that wasn't possible before. So if you think of Generation Z, I think they will surprise us with new business models. So my three key messages: one is why we need to change, the other one is that we need new tools, and I believe we need new skills. And I think your clients, they need a new you, because I believe that we as consultants, we have the responsibility to actually explain our customers how they can do better business. Thank you very much. I see you either tomorrow and the day after, or tonight in some crazy bar or club.